Okay. Um, so watch this space because this is unusual for me. I've just come across a report on Yahoo News, which I think produces a lot of talking points, and it's unusual for me because you're going to hear me defending the celebrity chef Gordon Ramsay. Now, you may know that I've made previous videos about this guy where I've been very critical, and I don't unsay anything I said. I stand by all of that. I do think that Gordon Ramsay's whole approach, yelling in people's faces, and that whole thing he does, I really, really don't like it. I find it pretty obnoxious, and I do think it's bullying. But this particular situation or this particular exchange just is really ridiculous. Okay, so I'm going to read out a bit of the report. I won't read it all because it's a bit long, but I'll read out the report and then offer my thoughts. Gordon Ramsay has clashed with a restaurant critic in a cultural appropriation row over his new restaurant. Lucky Cats will open in Mayfair this summer, but a pop-up launch of the food that will be on offer happened last week. But writing on London Eater, critic Angela Hui took issue with Ramsay and his team's project, said to be inspired by the drinking dens of 1930s Tokyo, and which is being run by Ramsay's head chef Ben Orpwood. Hui posted to Instagram while at the launch saying, I can only drink through the pain that this, an Asian event, sick, she wrote in one post. She added in another, Japanese, Chinese, it's all Asian, who cares? She signed off her story saying, I was the only East Asian person in the room full of 30 to 40 journalists and chefs. Um, and his official response on Instagram is as follows. This week, Gordon Ramsay Restaurants hosted a preview night for our new concept Lucky Cat, an Asian eating house set to launch in the heart of Mayfair. It was a warm, buzzing, and brilliant night to celebrate what has been a long term vision for me. Despite the very positive feedback from guests, there was regretfully one offensive response from the night which I have to call out. In the 21 years that I've been running restaurants, I've had my fair share of reviews, good and bad. Critics and reviewers have an important job to do, and it's important they are independent and have freedom of speech. However, the slew of derogatory and offensive social media posts that appeared on Angela Hui's social channels were not professional. It's fine to not like my food, but prejudice and insults are not welcome, and Miss Hui's comments around my executive chef and his wife calling her a token Asian wife were personally hugely disrespectful. Gordon Ramsay restaurants do not discriminate based on gender, race, or beliefs, and we don't expect anyone else to. I may not agree with all reviews, but if someone is going to be critical, and I expect them to be professional and have some integrity. Now, I have to say, by Gordon Ramsay's standards, to me, that seems very measured and tame. Um, I mean, the comment that she was making about Ben Orpwood's wife being a token Asian wife is disgraceful. Um, She has her apologists, so this is some of them. Some have taken issue with Ramsey's comments, however. One Instagram user hit back saying, and here we are, an astounding example of a person in power silencing WOC's, I assume that's Woman of Colour's, lived experience of racism, to disregard her uncomfortableness at the othering she felt at the event, not to mention the absolute lack of care the menu showed to the multiplicity in Asian cooking. Well, firstly, she was obviously at the event, so the insinuation that it was discriminating against Asian critics is baseless, just baseless. This post is nothing but bullying. To call out by name when you have this level of power, direct trolls to the writer, it creates yet again an unsafe space for this woman. Why? Because she called out the BS appropriating food. This restaurant concept is steeped in racist, entitled behaviour. Gordon Ramsay's many things. He might be a bully. I think there's definitely an aspect of that to him. But I have seen no evidence whatsoever that he is a racist. And that is a very inflammatory thing to throw at someone. And this user, it's just complete rubbish what they're saying. Chef George Chen added, is the famous chef going to curse at his white cooks in Asian or what? Every chef has a right to interpret another cuisine, but the integrity and culture, read authenticity, albeit I hate that term, needs to be studied in depth and not whitewashed for marketing purposes. Well, I agree that if you're going to do something, make it authentic. But again, his insinuation that Ramsay, only targets Asians in his rather aggressive style is complete nonsense. In fact, the very reason I made those videos critical of Ramsay, the sort of examples I had seen, was young white trainees that he was yelling at. So again, that's just a baseless, race baiting piece of nonsense from George Chen. But here's my question to that Instagram user that was defending Angela Hui. She don't make her into a victim. If she's going to insult people, and it's not Gordon Ramsay, she was insulting the wife of his chef. Now, why should she be allowed to insult people? And yet, when Gordon Ramsay retaliates or responds in a very measured way, that's bullying. There are examples of Ramsay using unpleasant approaches, but this is not one of them. I mean, to suggest that lived experience of where's the racism? Where the hell is the racism? Was anyone at the event making derogatory racial comments towards her? Was she prevented from entering the event? I absolutely despise the way that the term racism is just thrown around by idiots and race baiters and people who just want to create unnecessary controversies that just aren't there to anyone who has their head screwed on properly. She can complain about racism, but this idea that only she can have a view. As for directing trolls, like I say, his response was very measured. It's not like he was calling for vigilantism against her. He was simply defending his business, which surely he has a right to do. I play fair, and I've been very critical of Ramsey. I'm not a fan of him, and I'm not like a newfound fan because of this. But I do think his response was reasonable, and I will play fair with people. If I think someone is being unfairly smeared, even if I don't particularly like them, I will defend them. And this is one such case. I think his response was measured, and I think the criticism, both by Angela Hui and her apologists, is pathetic. I mean, making her out to be the victim. She's the one that is using derogatory language about the chef's wife. She's the one that is basically saying that a white chef cannot be influenced by Asian cuisine. I mean, where do you draw the line with cultural appropriation? I mean, is she going to call out, for example, is she going to take issue with the fact that Western culture is very popular in Japan? No, of course not. Because those who push this cultural appropriation narrative only aim at white people. Anyone else that is appreciating other cultures, that's fine. But if white people do it, no, that's cultural appropriation. And you know what's ironic about this? The sort of people who whinge and whine about cultural appropriation are the very people who would be accusing someone like Gordon Ramsay or others of racism if they didn't have diversity in their projects. It's just pathetic. You cannot win with these people. And I find it rather sickening, to be quite honest. I do feel strongly about this, as you can tell, because it's just shackling creativity. It's shackling. I mean, it isn't just this case. There are many examples. I mean, where do you draw the limit? If you take the cultural appropriation argument to its extreme, I, for example, couldn't use my Nikon camera because it's a Japanese product. I couldn't eat Italian food. I couldn't use products that are made in Turkey or the United States or anywhere else. I couldn't appreciate blues music, which was a pioneering style of African Americans in the early 20th century. Where do you draw the line with this? It's just a completely nonsense term made up by controlling individuals. I suspect that being controversial, this journalist thought that, or this critic thought she would get her name around. But it's true that Ramsey is in a powerful position. And if he had been very, aggressive in his response, I might not be that sympathetic. But I thought his response was measured. And for George Chen to make her out to be a victim, along with, well, actually, it was the Instagram user that did, that Instagram user, the nameless Instagram user, you know, being a woman of color doesn't mean that you're above criticism. Being a woman of color doesn't mean that you have this little protective bubble whereby you can insult people and they can't defend themselves. I mean, I've been in mixed relations, and if someone accused my girlfriend, um, my former girlfriend, I should say, of being a token Chinese girlfriend, I would feel very angry, and so would she have. You know, just live and let live. It's utterly pathetic. So on this occasion, I'm defending Gordon Ramsay. I think his response was measured. I think the criticism is nonsense. And as for the lived experience of racism, I think for once that when people are charging racism, there needs to be an onus on them to prove it. Where is the racism? Where? Was she, did someone use derogatory language against her? It's complete crap. And the problem with this, it's not just irritating, but it is actually problematic because it destroys creativity. It means that white people are going to be nervous about appreciating other cultures because they're going to be accused of cultural. I'm not saying Gordon Ramsay will be, but white people are generally going to be thinking, oh, well, if I appreciate another culture, will I then be accused of culture appropriation? It's complete crap.